Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here with Brother Bro. It's time to review Judas and the Black Messiah, new film directed by Shaka King, starring Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield, and also in supporting roles Dominique Fishback and Jesse Plemons. This is the late-breaking Oscar hopeful that premiered at Sundance about Black Panther chairman Fred Hampton, equally about a FBI informant played by Lakeith Stanfield who infiltrates the Black Panther Party.
This film is very much along the line, I think, of Oscar bait movies. Like, think The Departed. I really think it has a lot of similarities to that. Obviously, subject matter wise, there is like a rat that they have to kind of sniff out. And it very much feels like a thrilling crime film with the addition that it's just much more tragic. It doesn't feel bogged down by like Oscar baity crafts or by Oscar baity storytelling. It feels just as radical as like Fred Hampton was, and I think it does this message justice that he was trying to preach, whereas other films could have easily watered this down. The most shocking thing about this film to me was the way it portrayed this war between Black Panther Party and police. Police are, in a sense, portrayed as like being terroristic towards them. And I think that's a really hard pill to swallow, to go back into our history and say there was a time when you could have interpreted like our own police force in certain cities as a type of fascism.
Well, it's not so once upon a time there used to be this, right? I mean, obviously...
Yeah, that's the scary thing though, is because this wasn't that long ago. And so I have to ask myself, how far have we come? Like, how much have we changed?
It almost feels like it could have taken place today in a lot of ways. There's still this sort of antagonism between the police and the Black community. Your typical white American at the time would probably assume that the Black Panthers were perpetrating this war between the officers and their community. But the film definitely turns it on its head and says, who really started this war? Like, whose war is this? Why is it being waged? Who are the victims here? It was actually almost jarring to see a film like this that's so willing to be like overtly political, especially for like a studio film with over a $20 million budget. The film feels like it's trying to show us a piece of American history that we are actively not told. And you get the sense that the powers that be are able to like kind of push what kind of narrative they want to and say who's the villain in these scenarios. But this film is kind of saying, we're not going to let this history be rewritten. We're going to be really honest with Fred Hampton's politics and what really happened with the Black Panther movement.
There are even times when Fred Hampton is making his speeches and he's saying things that could be deemed like somewhat legitimately like terroristic. There's a lot of socialist rhetoric put out there, but at the same time, like, these are groups that are building communities that try to provide their own healthcare or their own food to themselves, which really is not a threat to political power whatsoever. The fact that I'm even like kind of grappling with, was Fred Hampton like too radical? The fact that they showed him being as radical as he was is a testament to good, honest filmmaking.
A lot of those civil rights movies will make you think that, oh, like if I were alive in the time of Martin Luther King, of course we would be supporting his ideas. The whole public, oh, they loved Martin Luther King. This movie is not trying to create a history that's agreeable. All that aside, the film is extraordinarily entertaining and gripping the entire way through. I'd watched a lot of Sundance films before this one, and I was wondering if I was starting to get like worn down with movies. But this film was like completely engaging from start to finish. It covers like a lot of ground. It feels like a crime saga. It's actually not so much a Fred Hampton biopic. I would say that it's as much about Fred Hampton as it is about Lakeith Stanfield's character. I would say equally. Daniel Kaluuya is absolutely amazing. Every bit as great as you wanted him to be from the trailer and more.
His vocal control is really center stage of this movie.
You also get to see a more sensitive side of him as well. You come to know him as someone with a really big heart who's operating selflessly.
Lakeith Stanfield's performance is really perfect too. He gives guilt and humanity to this person to the point where I didn't think of him as a bad guy or a good guy, which is interesting because you later reflect on like what history may have looked at him as, and it might not be as flattering. The fact that he played him with so much vulnerability, like it really made this character memorable. And then we have Dominique Fishback, who I did not know who she was before this movie. She completely won me over. There are one or two scenes, one in particular, that is some of the best acting in the movie. Lastly, I think Jesse Plemons is really worth mentioning here.
He actually had a little bit of a character arc, which I really appreciated.
Yeah.
I didn't know if I was going to get much from that character, but he ended up being actually pretty interesting.
Cinematography from Sean Bobbitt. Great looking movie throughout. The way that he filmed Daniel Kaluuya too when he was giving the speeches was like perfect. I loved how those scenes were shot.
Yeah, it almost feels like a Paul Thomas Anderson kind of close up.
Yeah, it was great. Happens. It was great. The way that the ending scene was shot was very memorable. This was also a really well directed movie, I thought, like all around. I think Shaka King could take on like nearly any project from this. Lastly, I think I would highlight the writing in this movie.
Oh yeah.
I think that this screenplay was like really sharp.
The movie is just as thrilling as it is thought-provoking, because you're always learning about like the ideas of Fred Hampton and the people around him. And the script does a great job of conveying those ideas in a really smart way.
It paints two portraits sort of at once of these two different people. And they're both interesting in their own right.
I wouldn't necessarily call the movie like a character study, but I think it dives into each character like just the right amount.
Yeah.
But it is definitely about like the broader picture that it's painting about the years that it spans and the movement that Fred Hampton led.
We've been skirting around it, but we're going to talk about Oscar shit now. The film has to be nominated for Best Picture. I mean, in a lot of ways, it feels like a typical movie that would get nominated for Best Picture, with the exception that it's like a little bit more radical. I'd be shocked at this point if it didn't get nominated. I feel like it is solidly in there. And I am kind of breathing a sigh of relief because it seems like it was ambiguous. I don't know how high up it is on Picture. Some people are like, well, can it win? I mean, keep in mind that this is like out of the gate festival hype. And so I wouldn't go off of this alone to say that this could win Best Picture. Personally, I think this is better than Trial of Chicago 7, which is being hyped up to win. And I feel like this should be contending with Nomadland instead of Trial of Chicago 7.
And you can compare apples to apples a little bit with that one, because Trial and this
movie, they're kind of both an apple.
They're both, you know, movies about basically the same time period, similar issues of, you know, combating authority.
I think this one does stand a little bit taller. I wonder if that will help it challenge Trial of Chicago 7 for perhaps like becoming a winner. I don't know. But it's really hard for me to say whether this film could win or not. I'm definitely leaning towards that it's not likely.
If it is nominated, it'll definitely be one of my favorite movies. I think it's kind of tied with a few of them, but you have Daniel Kaluuya probably going to win supporting actor. And if he doesn't win, if Sacha Baron Cohen wins, God so help me. Daniel Kaluuya is like easily the best performance in the category. He's even practically a lead. He should have the Oscar in his pocket. Other than that, like what can you really win here? Like it's probably not going to get a screenplay win, right? Director, I think it could get like a surprise nomination because it could be peaking at the right time. With this late release, it might fail to build steam at the SAGs and Globes. We'll find out very soon if that's the case. Remember how American Sniper was a very late film, and then that peaked at the right time and got a lot of Oscar nominations. Even Phantom Thread was like that. Picture, screenplay, supporting actor. It should be getting editing and cinematography. I don't think any of those are locked in.
I think cinematography is like pretty in there though, because it's a big push for Sean Bobbitt to get nominated finally.
I hope there's a push.
Editing, I could see it being like a 5th or 6th slot at this point, but I hope that it comes out even stronger and that we don't even have to like question whether it can get in.
Can Lakeith Stanfield or Dominique Fishback get acting nominations? I'm more skeptical about this. Lakeith Stanfield probably shares a similar amount of screen time to Kaluuya, and I don't think it's the kind of performance that gets a lead nomination, but he's really excellent. I'm not like opposed to it. And Dominique Fishback, I don't really see that happening, but again, I'm not like opposed to it.
So 4 or 5 right now, and if it performs really well, maybe we'll see actor, maybe we'll see director.
It better be nominated is all I can say. I give this like a very high 9 out of 10. Will potentially be on my top 10 films of next year, and it would have made it this year.
Yeah, this is like a really high 9 out of 10 as well. I think it would have cracked my top 10 this year. Absolutely watch it.
We know you will, and you'll also enjoy it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing.
What color Messiah are you?